Hello everybody, this is Refresh and I'm here to take a look at the Basri Planeswalker deck for Magic the Gathering. This is for core set 2021. It's a white deck. On the back it says you get Basri Devoted Paladin. The entire multiverse has opened up before Basri Ket, ready to test his unshakable ideals. Spread the hurt by permanently powering up an army of creatures that submit to no one. You get a deck box, a 60-card deck which you can play tabletop or online, and one 15-card booster pack, as well as a strategy insert and 2 reference cards. Let's go ahead and take a look at what's inside. Here's our Basri Devoted Paladin. It's just a little bit curved, and it is a 6-mana, 4 loyalty Basri Planeswalker, and for +1, you can put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature. It gains vigilance until end of turn. For -1, whenever a creature attacks this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And for -6 creatures you control, get +2/+2 and gain flying until end of turn. Here's our deck box with some Basri artwork. Let's take a look at what's inside. Here's our deck, our strategy insert, and our single booster pack, which is less than the usual Planeswalker decks, but it's meaningful because these core set Planeswalker decks are a little bit less expensive as well. So I think it's a fair trade-off. Let's take a look at the deck. Basri's Aegis appears to be the exclusive rare here, and it's a 4-mana sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures, and then you can grab Basri from your graveyard or your deck. It's not that powerful of a card, but hopefully it synergizes really well with Basri's other cards to be good. Adherent of Hope is the deck's exclusive common. It's a 2-mana, 2/1 human soldier at the beginning of combat on your turn. If you control a Basri Planeswalker, put a +1/+1 counter on Adherent of Hope. So it gets bigger once you control a Basri. Otherwise, it's just a simple 2/1. Sigiled Contender appears to be the uncommon that's exclusive to this deck, and it's a 4-mana, 3/3 human warrior, and it has lifelink as long as it has a +1/+1 counter on it. So this is good even without Basri, and just putting a counter on it makes it quite a contender. Alright, here's a little information on combat damage, a little information on attacking and blocking, some information about popular formats, which I don't think is the most useful tip, as well as a turn phase guide, which I do think is useful, and then your code that you can use to redeem this deck on Magic Arena. This is great because it means that you can play this deck even when you don't have anyone to play against, and it gets you into both, and all for the cost of 1 deck. This code has already been used by me, so there's no reason to try to use it yourself, but that is the deck. I'll be right back after playing this against its peers to let you know what I think. Alright, so I've had a little time to play with this deck, and here are my thoughts. The first thing that is true is that this is mostly a counters deck. A lot of the creatures here either benefit from counters or they give counters. So, for example, the makeshift battalions will give counters if you're attacking with 3 or more creatures. The Basri's Acolyte drops counters on up to 2 creatures. Basri's Lieutenant benefits from counters because when a creature with a +1/+1 counter dies, then you get a 2/2 white knight creature with vigilance. There is also a minor life gain theme here, and I think it's only there to really support the Speaker of the Heavens. Now granted, life gain in general can be useful in a race situation, and so the Anointed Choristers, the Sigil Commanders, and the Avengagel Masters might be giving you life just so that when you're racing your opponent, you will end up on the top of that race. But aside from the Speaker of the Heavens, there's not much of a payoff for life gain, and so we're not looking at that being the strategy of this deck. This is also the most minor of human and non-human synergies, and that is because of the Fight as One being the sole combat trick in this deck. What this does is it gives your humans indestructible and +1/+1, and then it can also give your non-humans the same thing. And your non-humans in this deck aren't many. You have the Basri's Acolytes and the Avengagel Masters, and that's it. So it's the most minor of themes. Most of your creatures are human. The Perimeter Sergeant will also buff humans, but he's just a one of a kind. Sadly, Basri's Lieutenant doesn't create human knights, just 2/2 knight. And so they don't have a race other than their class. So they're not actually humans. And so it's a minor sub-theme. I think that this deck works modestly well. It's fairly aggressive And as long as you can get on the ground and start pounding in, and especially if you can put some counters on some creatures, then you could possibly run away with the game. But a lot of times I find that this deck is a little bit slow for the type of aggressive plan that it has. And it doesn't have too many ways of winning combat, aside from just being faster than your opponent. So that's what you have to do. And if you get stalled for any reason, then you have your Fighters ones and your Banishing Lights to win in combat. And maybe you can also use your Aven Gaggle Masters. But here's the thing, that card only ever gets you 2 life because it's the only creature with flying that is in your deck. Maybe if you play your second one, you can get another one. And I guess if you can get the Angels down, then you'll get some more. But if you're already being able to activate Speaker of the Heavens, you're probably close to winning anyways. And so I find that this deck is just medium and not terribly exciting because its game plan is so loose and the payoff for its game plan is so limited, other than gaining life. Like the Sigil Commanders, the uncommon for this deck gains you life after you put a +1/+1 counter on it. Then you're just racing. And in the stalled board state, this deck can really slow down unless you can get one of your tricks or your removals to turn the game around. I think Swift Response is kind of an odd spell for this particular deck too, because it is so defensive and it destroys tapped creatures and you really want to be on the attack. And so I guess the plan is that you're turning your cards sideways so much that you let your opponent swing out at you, and then you play Swift Response to get rid of whatever threat that you're seemingly leaving yourself open to. But anyway it goes, I think that this is just a medium deck. If you like +1/+1 counters and mono white decks and a little bit of life gain, this still could be for you. There are plenty of other Planeswalker decks that play in this same space, but this is the last of the Planeswalker decks that are in this color. And so if this is available to you and this strategy is appealing to you, then you could do worse. This deck, it does have many playsets of cards and 3-ofs, and so it is at least consistent compared to earlier pre-constructed decks. That's going to be it for me. If you have had any experience with this deck, please let us know what your experience was in the comments below. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button. If you'd like to see more of my videos, you can hit subscribe. This is Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.